So this is going to be my review video as someone who has pretty much eat, lived, breathed, my entire life was revolving around this game because of how absolutely incredibly addicted I was to Arknights Endfield. Just a disclaimer, right? Of course, as a review video, it is always purely going to be subjective, right? This is sponsored by myself because no one sponsors this kind of stuff. I would say probably just something of like a good thing for like the community, right? For content creators is that I would say it would be nice where in the future, if for any sort of like review videos, right, it would be nice if a creator always shows up like, okay, we will first make a video on what I understand about the game. Then I will make a video about how I feel about the game. Because I think this is a huge help to kind of identify why you would feel this certain type of way. Where exactly are you at in terms of like the game progression? And how a lot of things that you feel probably can or cannot be addressed simply as per usual by playing, right? So this review is done by someone who has done easily more than like not even close to, way more than 100 hours in the past 1 week. I have identified a ridiculous amount of cons that this game needs to fix, obviously, right, purely for the purpose of constructive criticism. But holy shit, there is a lot, right? As well as, like, there's this saying, 该夸就夸，该卖就卖, right? So, like, if I'm gonna be able to praise this game for what it's gonna be, then fantastic, right? Things that deserve praise will definitely get praised. But things that are, like, you need to be fixed, I will also not hold back because I think this will ultimately be good for the game itself as well. Because a lot of these things, I think they should definitely be added, especially for a game with, like, this much potential, right? So, without further ado, first of all, check out this video here where I kind of just break down you guys, like, what I know about this game, my understanding, complete review, so not complete review, complete progression, guide, beginners, and all that kind of stuff, right? Then come back over here, and here is my review. Disclaimer, everything that's gonna be said over here is probably not something you're gonna be able to experience for yourselves unless you have went through a similar path as me, which honestly is very unlikely, and you will probably feel some of these things towards the later portion of the game. So maybe you're going to be playing this game like 2 to 3 weeks into the future, right? So the purpose of, I would say, any content creators that want to speed run through the game and play as much as possible, it is also like doing our due diligence so that all these things that are going to be said and done, you know that it is coming from a place of like, okay, yeah, because I want to play this game so much and there are like so many things that you can do to make it even better or make it like, maybe like it's so good that it deserves to like continue doing what it's going to be doing, right? So that's going to be a disclaimer. I will just first start off with all the pros and then I'll start off with all the cons. And then I'll start with one final point, which is like a little bit of a bonus point, and then we can just wrap it up over there, right? So, number one, for the pros, I think, undisputedly, is that a word? Indisputably speaking, I'm not sure what that word is, 不可能挑战的, right? Arknights Endfield is probably one of the prettiest, graphically, most intensively well-made 1.0 gacha game I've played in recent memory. Everything about this game just screams like 赞美漂 pretty. Okay, I need to stop using that. It is very, very, very pleasing to the eyes with regards to like their actual character models, their expressions, their unique interactions with one another, their story cutscenes, the presentation of the actual story itself. Whether the story is good or bad, I'll talk about the story later, but the actual execution itself, the environmental textures for the rain, the fog, the mist, right? When you walk on the snow and it like leaves a footprint, the battle effects, as effect. So everything about this, graphically speaking, I think it is probably one of the best I've seen for 1.0. On a very similar note, this game also has incredibly good optimization. I don't think I've ever crashed a single time throughout all my time streaming. I also stress tested this game on my mobile device. Runs very, very well. Although for my mobile, okay, maybe my phone is like 3 years old, but it is very, very smooth. I never ever crashed. It is very, very capable of running at 60 FPS. It's just that my battery drains very, very fast, which is kind of bad, but I can play this game no issue whatsoever. So in terms of performance, optimization, how this game actually looks, it ticks pretty much all the expectations that I would expect for a gacha game that's going to be coming out in let's just say this year 2026, it is not too fair to compare Endfield to, for example, like let's just say, right, like the Warmonger. You want to compare to Genshin Impact? Oh my god, look at this game. What the hell does Genshin Impact have? Okay, like Genshin Impact is like comparing a Gen Z to a Gen A, right? Different time, different engine, all that kind of stuff. But for a game in 2026, it is of one of, if not the highest quality, and I could not like appreciate the graphics enough, right? So very, very good point over here. On a second note, this is gonna be very, very subjective, but I like the ambience music of Arknights Endfield a lot. So far, I haven't really seen like singer songs, like for example, like Proi Prois, right? Like your Genshin Farina songs. The music for the settings are very atmospheric. So like when you go to Wuling, right, when we are gonna be staying in Dijiang, right, when you go even in battle, you are just like exploring around the world, right? The sound, the SFX of like the waterfall and the floors collapsing, the sound of like the bomb throwing, it is very, very atmospheric, and it really makes you, okay, at least for myself, it makes a very good open world experience, because I think one of the main selling points for open world game, it is to be as immersive as possible, right? And this is easily done with visually speaking as well as audioly speaking. And I think that for Arknights Endfield, these two boxes are pretty much completely checked, so no issues there whatsoever. Okay, this one, I listed it as a pro, but I can easily see how this can be a con for a lot of you guys, which is going to be the AIC. And the only reason why I list the AIC as a pro instead of a con is because I am speaking from someone as zero understanding of Factorial. I've never played Factorial. I've never played Satisfactory. And even on stream, day one, I was like hating it. I was like stuck in the tutorial. I don't even know where to like put the tiles. I was so clueless. I have no idea what I use. I don't know what's production. I don't know what's like the bug A, bug B's. I have no idea where to go. And it was so lost, right? But after spending my time, right? Yes, you do need to, you need to spend your time on something if you want to get better at something, right? It is not like, I just want to do nothing and I expect everything to just... No, I actually had to spend my time, not just on the game, playing the game, experiencing the game. I had very good help from a community of players who knows exactly how this Factorial thing works. I was looking at all of the CN guides from Bilibili. I did as much due diligence as I possibly could to suck less at AIC. I acknowledge that I suck. I don't want to suck. And because of that mindset, I was able to essentially like, holy, this... I can see why people feel that the AIC portion of this game can be satisfying, because it is very, very different from an expectation of like going into a combat game, where the main selling point is, at least for like the first impressions, it is usually like how the game feels when you fight, right? It's always about fighting, right? This game, combat really is like a second-hand backseat, and for the first time in a long time, it's like, oh wow, it is actually not a combat-focused game. And there is beauty in understanding this whole AIC system, and once I see like from yoinking blueprints to customizing my own blueprints to fit my need, and I see that 18 per minute, and I see that maximum efficiency yield balanced out with the usage, it makes me feel super, super happy that, oh my god, wow, this, after spending like hours and hours and hours moving the tiles, dragging, like, do I need this like +1 frame, or do I need that? It does get to a point where like, the final product you see is really like building a Gundam or like building a Lego, right? So for me, I can see this as a pro, because I literally went from a hater to someone that enjoys it. But you are absolutely valid in your own opinions if you don't like this system, because it is honestly a lot, right? You cannot just have like zero experience with AIC and expect to understand everything in like a couple of hours, especially if you have no intention of learning in the first place. So it really is gonna be individual from point to point. I would say, despite these two things being true, where you could hate it, you could love it, but you can't really deny that blueprints, right? Blueprints are a very, very big W for casuals, because back in CBD 2, there was no such thing as blueprint. So everything had to be handmade. They added it in CBD 3, and now that this feature is actually going to be here, it made it a lot more time-friendly, especially for players trying to get into the game itself, and even for like players that are actually already experts it just makes it so much nicer to just share your ideas among your community and oh wow, check out this setup, right? I made devs listen, right? I made this pylon to like point towards the sky. Right? It is very, very interesting, and I think it's very good for the community as a whole. Alright, so that's gonna be that for the AIC. The next thing, once again, a pretty divisive point, but I personally quite enjoy Arknights Enfield's combat system. And this is also from someone that I did not like the combat system back in Sibley 3, even though I had a rough understanding of how the elements work, but like the camera movements and the impact frames and like everything from what I experienced last time, and I see the difference bringing forward into the live server, I can appreciate the improvement of how it's gonna be. But of course, this is with the understanding of what I already have, which is how combat works in the game itself. So from all of my time playing the combat in AKE, I use it on a controller and I felt really, really clean, right? So I like how the combo skills work with the elemental reactions, right? The timing of your energies, your different stagger rotation, and it feels very alive, especially for the re-crisis bosses. And it was a fresh sense of challenge because okay, I know those bosses are gonna be like crazy, but for a story boss, I am very happy that it was actually not a free win and you actually needed to log in and play it almost like how you would play an actual boss fight for an endgame in the other Gacha series when you're gonna be in the endgame portion. Now, I would say that if you're gonna be a player that understands how the combat works, it will feel extremely, extremely different to someone that's just like spamming your skill points or whatever. You're not sure when to use the ultimate or when to use your skill points, and whenever the combo skill lies out, you just press combo. This will be a completely different world for someone that knows the order of when you do things, because it will drastically affect your damage output. Because if you just button mash, you could still do damage, especially in the early game, but for bosses that start to matter, you will see a absolutely insane difference in your rotation. So for example, Levitate, if you were to use a skill before any flame inflictions, you basically just wasted like almost 10 seconds waiting for a skill to recover. And that is a huge, huge, huge DPS loss. And it's just these minor things that can kind of just change a lot of how the combat actually feels. So for me, I think this is very satisfying, but I don't think it's perfect, which I'm going to be talking about in the comment section. But so for now, I'm okay with this, right? And I think one thing is because they made the game's combat not as focused as compared to the AIC, you don't really feel the need to get super, super sweaty about like animation cancels, car canceling, and the quick swap, because it is a very chill thing. And I think there's a sense of freshness that I haven't felt for a long time, because most gacha games nowadays, it is always about fighting, right? It is about fighting, combat, beating your enemies, and this game doesn't really feel that. Like, there are still combat, and frankly speaking, combat is the actual end game, because like I mentioned, AIC is a one-time thing. Once you're done with AIC, you have to move on to combat. But at least in the early, mid, and like my first 1 week, I could genuinely just not give a single shit about combat, and I would still find myself having fun, because the reason why I have fun in Endfield is not about combat. It is about everything this game actually is teaching me for providing such a unique experience, right? So that's pretty much it. And one thing over here, this one is technically a bad thing for the company, but it is a really good thing for me. And also, I guess, bad thing to a couple of like, you know, the our account funders, right? If y'all still believe in the whole day or whatever. Personally, as someone that has been playing on a free-to-play account every single day, this is my one and only account, right? Dupes matter almost zero. It is almost completely negligible. Maybe you add like 5 to 10% more damage. There's no such thing as like E2 syndrome comparable to like a Genshin, HSR, or like Xenozones, or even One Ways. And frankly speaking, when I'm playing this game, I have like zero pressure to spend money. Like legitimately zero. Because I know I said in my previous video, for like my complete breakdown of what I know about Arknights Endfield, at the very, very end, I was like, this game feels like a game first, gacha second, right? I think we've heard this time like so many times. A certain game is a game first and gacha second. I can confidently say, even if I did not pull Levitate, even if I did not pull the S1, even if I don't have access to a single actual unit in this game, I will still be spending similar amounts of time, because I don't even end up using her that much. Where majority of the time is basically literally on AIC, right? I would say like more than 80% of the start of the game, it is purely focused on getting on bases, interacting with the logos, familiarizing yourself with the environments. So whether or not you have a P5 Levitate, P0 Levitate, do you reroll for last, right? Do you reroll for pop? Like any 5-star starter, I got an Ember, it makes almost zero difference to me as someone that's completely free to play, right? So I would say this is gonna be a little bit concerning, especially in the future. But for now, it's gonna be completely fine because there is no endgame content. Alright, we need to kind of acknowledge that Arknights Endfield 1.0 right now, it is not really a finished product because there isn't a world in which you even feel incentivized to spend on units when the focus of the game itself is not on units. Which I think is a little bit bad for the company because if you ask any gacha game, the number one priority of how gacha games sell is via units. It is always via units, right? That's how gacha games earn money. But because of like the amount of focus I have in Endfield on everything else besides the units, I don't really care if I get Levitain, if I get Lemon, if I get Gilberta, or like whatever it's gonna be, right? So from this sense, a P5 Levitain, theoretically speaking, if I would have it, it would pretty much let me clear overall faster, right? It will make me clear the farming stages faster, right? Maybe I one-shot the story boss in like 30 seconds instead of like sweating out for like 3 minutes. But majority of my time that is going to be being spent is still going to be AIC. And in fact, I would gain more satisfaction getting a 18 per minute buck A than getting a 1 minute clear on Rodan. I will get more satisfaction being able to craft gold gears early than going ahead and like, oh my god, you know what? This team dealt 100k in a single skill. Because combat's importance in Endfield just feels that little. And they are not monetizing the majority of time in which I'm getting enjoyment for this game. So for me as a player, I think this is really, really good. So in the future, right, when they actually introduce their endgame content, because this is not going to be how the game is going to be like, right? Let's just be right. This is only the early start of the game, the launch, the first week. But when they actually introduce like meta, right? When tier lists actually start to matter, when they introduce Spiral Abyss, when they introduce all the things, then that's when, okay, you know what? I need to sit down, right? I need to learn the rotations. I need to learn like elementals, right? Should I use physical team or fire team? That's when it's okay. But for now, it is legitimately like completely irrelevant. And like, yes, if you're wondering like, should you reroll or whatever? No, I really think that rerolling, it is just a complete waste of time. Whoever you get, it is completely fine. In fact, I personally think the best team right now is a free team, which is physical. So that's pretty much gonna be that. All right, one last thing before I go into the cons, and that is gonna be the gear system for this game, right? This game's gear system is probably one of my favorite because it has not no RNG, but it has a different layer of RNG, which makes things fresh. All right, do not be fooled into thinking this game has no RNG because it definitely does. If you go into artificing as well as essence mixing, it is 100% RNG. But the RNG for this game is, it is the chance to succeed into your fusion for your essence as well as your artifacts. But if you fail, the gear, the actual one piece of gear, it is gonna be the exact same for everyone. So all your endgame builds will pretty much look the same, right? So for your Levitain, you're gonna be getting your intellect, you're gonna be attack boost as well as Twilight. Then everybody else is like, who gets to the highest levels fastest? So it doesn't really matter if I hit it today, tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year. But like, we are all already running like similar setups. So even if I do not have the best in slot piece for Levitain or for like artifacts, I didn't like artifice to the max, it's fine because I feel a sense of like progression made eventually over time. So for example, your gear artificing, there's literally a pity system built into the gear artificing. So for the number of times you fail gear artificing, you can then build a literal pity in which you can then 100% succeed in your next hit, which feels super different from like my almost all of the games I played, which is you just constantly cope. You cope, you pray, you pray to God that finally you land double crit, and then after you land double crit, you roll like 4 rolls in the crit, and then if it doesn't roll, then oh my god, bruh, is it better than my previous piece? Is it worse than my other piece? Should I even change this piece further? It is just like, and I have experienced this thing so many times. It is not like a necessarily good or bad system, because I do think at the end of the day, this gear RNG or like endgame relic grinding in Endfield, it will still take a ridiculous amount of stamina and a ridiculous amount of time, but it just feels different, so it makes it more palatable for me, for someone that's been playing this kind of game for a very, very long time. We are gonna come to the close of our pro segment. Honestly, there are a couple of other things I can probably think at the top of my head, but I just didn't list them here, so it's probably not as important. It's like, oh, I forgot something. Maybe it's not important. So I listed all the pros that I think was like really, really good for me, and it stood out to me as someone, and why I actually enjoy Endfield, right? So at this point, here are my cons, and I have quite a bit Once again, this is coming from a place of not like, oh my god, I hate Endfield. Endfield is done. Because frankly speaking, if I'm gonna hate the game, I will just drop it. Straight up, right? The way I see gacha games or even like gaming in general, it is very, very simple. If I hate a game to the point where I don't want to even care about it, I will simply just stop playing and we just move on. Because no harm, no foul, my time is very precious. I want to spend on things that I enjoy doing. And Alright Envy is something that I really, really enjoy playing. So if they can actually improve on all these things, it is just going to be a net positive for the community, for developers, for everyone, right? So this is absolutely coming from a place of good faith, right? This is coming from a place of good faith. With that being said, the number one most important is a con, but like it's more of a concern because I don't know. But at least from what I see right now as a consumer, this is a fact. And it is undeniable. The gacha income of Arknights Endfield is legitimately cooked. And I'm not talking about the gacha system. I'm not talking about 120 pieces. But it is literally the level of income. One of the very, very first things I said back in my everything you know about Arknights Endfield's gacha, the first thing I said was the only thing that matters in Arknights Endfield's gacha is the income. That's it. The system itself is like secondary, because if you have the absolute worst gacha system, but you have like a billion pools, then does it really matter? No. And if you would have the best possible gacha system, but you have no pools, then it's just gonna be bad, right? So income is the end of be all, and I can say as of right now, playing this in 1 week, I have huge concerns of what is gonna be coming in the future, and I don't know if we are gonna be able to improve this by how much better. So to put it into perspective, I probably missed out a couple of sources here and there. It is maybe I missed out, like, for example, I don't think we added the survey. I think survey, they gave us like 300 oro barrels. I probably missed out a little bit here and there, but generally speaking, it should be within 5 to 10% of the actual income we're going to be getting from this entire version 1 what we see, right? So you can see a lot, almost, I would say, more than 90% of all of our gacha pool currency, it is gonna be from the one-time clear rewards. You're grounding up to a roughly 81,000, right? Let's just say 81,000 plus minus 1k, whatever. It is gonna be essentially 110 standard pools, 80-ish k oro barrels, which translates to roughly 160 pools on the dot, right? So this is your one-time clears. Now, the issue is our recurring reward, it literally does not exist. This is in the course of 4 weeks. Not 1 week, 4 weeks. And that is a grand total of 25 pools in the version. Now, like I mentioned, this is not really like the gacha income is absolutely fucked, because we know for a fact there are gonna be events, right? There are gonna be endgame content, like CNY, devs listen, right? Maybe another dev system comes out and CNY gives out another temple. Like, all these things are theoretically speaking, right? You can go into it from a place of good faith or bad faith. It's like, if global passive happen, will there be 10 more global passive, or will there be no more global passive? So it's ultimately depending on you. I only speak on facts, and the fact of the matter is, this income is completely unsustainable from what I see. If in the future this thing like goes into like, I don't know, like 5x more, then fantastic, right? And the worries are unfounded. But I should just state this right now, in case Hypergriff ever thinks that this income is enough, it is 100,000% absolutely not enough, because 25 pools for a version, it's just kind of funny, because I remember Sarah of the Lake, which is one of my mod, bro was like, yeah, I'm gonna spend 60 pools every banner, which is 150 pools in a version, minus the 30 pools she gets for free, because it's gonna be 10 pool discount from 60, right? Yeah, bro wants to spend 150 limited pools. Right now, we are getting literally 25. Yep. It is really, 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 really bad. So, although our total number of pools right now as a free-to-play in this version is gonna be roughly 180, right? Combined total. And 110 for the standard pools. So around almost 300 pools in the version. Fantastic, right? It's super generous. But it is, at the end of the day, one-time clears. So whether or not every single update that comes out in 1.1, are they gonna give me an entire whole ass map, the same size as Valley 4, the same size as Wuling, right? Is Wuling gonna triple in size? Are we gonna get that many events? This one is completely up to like how it's gonna happen. Personally, I don't think 1.1 is ever gonna have that big of an update compared to an actual launch patch. So the income is not okay, and it needs to be fixed. No matter how good you are gonna be throwing into a gacha system, no gacha system in the entire world is able to sustain with 25 pools in a single version, right? That's just simply a matter of fact. So, number one thing, I'm very, very scared, I'm very concerned. Hopefully this is not gonna be the case, because if it is, then my plan for my free-to-play Bob, we might end up doing a no-pool account, and we pool like once every half a year. Like FGO. Yep, I heard FGO players save up like an entire year to pull for a single banner. So if that's gonna be the case, then we are we are absolutely fine. Hey, HSR 4.0 is coming, so that's gonna be there, right? So this is pretty much gonna be my number one concern. Number two concern, which is also a little bit tied to the gacha income. We know that if you are a player, you play the game to get pools. Right? I think that's a very, very fair statement. You play the game to get gacha income. You don't get all the income by not playing the game, right? You actually have to log in, explore, stamina, everything. But to be completely fair, this kind of ties into where Endfield places the bulk of this income. And I think this is honestly very, very important for the casuals. Try to follow me, right? So, on one of my videos I said in my Everything I Understand About Arknights Endfield is the game has a lot. There's a shit ton of things to do, and I don't think you're ever gonna get bored unless you absolutely hate the AIC and the combat and you just refuse to be playing, and I think that's completely fair. But the way that the income is split into the version, it is very, very, very scattered. As in, you really need to go ahead and, because like, a single chest could be like 1/5 of a pool, 1/4 of a pool, right? A side mission could have the same amount of pools, or rather the same amount of premium currency as a main mission. Not clearing your recipes, right? Even your recipes could give you like 1 pool from simply just crafting a recipe. So my point is basically, they make the pools like super, super spread out into all over the places of the game, which I think is a little bit unreasonable to expect most normal jobbers and casuals to get a desirable amount of income at least before a gacha banner ends. So for example, right, I got 140 pools for my own account as someone that has been like no-lifing this for like 1 week straight. Fantastic. But that is definitely never gonna happen for someone that is not gonna be able to no-life this for 1 week straight. In fact, I'll be kind of impressed if normal players can get like 80 pools from like playing the story, right? They are playing the story, they are taking the time with the Valley, with the AIC, but if they were to just get 80 pools, and they cannot hit 120 pools, right? And they think that they can hit 120 pools because of speedrunners like MrPokke, as well as grinders who really just go all in, then it will be really, really bad. And I really, really hope to in the future versions, the gacha income should at least be more casual friendly in terms of accessibility. Not saying that you can just stop playing the game and you play MS, you can get like 100 pools, but like at least weight it a little bit more to areas of content where it actually matters. The most important example I can think of is the AIC. Alright, I think we all know by now, we are spending a ridiculous amount of time playing the AIC. But there are virtually no pool rewards actually tied to mastering the AIC. You don't get like a 10 pool from completing like 18 out of 18 per minute in terms of your production, right? Like you don't get a bonus like 10 pool if you were to finish up your battery to like 1,000 watts or 6,000 watts. You don't. You have so much time focus on AIC building, which is already going to take a ridiculous amount of time for anyone trying to get the game, but there are no incentives tied to actually doing the AIC, which poses a very weird problem. Do you want players to learn AIC, which is the core structure of the game, or do you want players to go ahead and explore, do your craftings, right? Do your combat missions, do the side quests, do everything? And if you want them to at least have this reasonable amount to actually play this game, then I don't think it is fair to split these things into things that are lesser of importance compared to AIC. So if I were to do it, I would definitely place way more push into actually mastering AIC. So for example, if I can just kindly divert attention over here, if you are creating your first blueprint, right, let's just say it doesn't even have to be a good, it could literally be a dog shit fucking blueprint. If you just simply go into this right here, any blueprint, if you make one for a battery, right, you may want for like a capsule, right? Like these kind of things can incentivize players to not just, okay, I want to spend more time in AIC, but I also want to learn more AIC for myself, right? You both reward the players for trying, and you both give them the additional respect for the time, because they are going to be spending a lot of time here, right? And another example, if you take a look at you, right? If I'm going to be able to hit like a checkpoint of like 6 out of 10, or rather 6 per minute for HD battery, I should be getting a reward. 12 minute, I should be getting a reward, right? If I hit mining ores at like 200, 300, 400, right? I should be getting a reward, because I'm going around spending all this time collecting maps, right? I'm fucking running pylons, I'm running the zip lines, I fucking run like T-Vibe, bro. I legitimately can spend like almost half a day purely doing nothing but getting the mine spots. And I have nothing to show for in pool income, because that is not where the pool income is allocated, which I legitimately think just does not make sense, especially given how tight the banner is between each unit, right? So if they can actually fix this going forward in the future, I think this will be a huge help for not even just like giving more pools to player, because the pools are almost the same, right? You don't even need to change your one-time clear pools, because we clearly see there are enough one-time clears, but just allocate in a sense where like it makes sense for me to want to try to play the AIC, right? So that is gonna be my second point, which technically is basically just a single point: the gacha income, as well as how you allocate your gacha income, right? Very good. This next part, it is a lot more subjective than the previous part, because I think the previous part, it's like, I think everyone can agree, most people who play the game would agree with like what I said on the previous part. Okay, this part is very subjective. The story, I think the way that Arknights Endfield have delivered story is very nice. It is a very new take on players who have never experienced Arknights ever. Like myself, I have no idea who is admin, the doctor, right? Who is Chen, who is Suitor, who is Levden, and all that. So they want to like introduce like all these kind of things, like the wow factors, right? The cinema, right? The big meteor crashing down, right? Our girlfriend, right? Our girlfriend owning everything. But if there's a single critique that I personally don't like, okay, this is really like, do you like senpai and one waves? Yes or no, right? It is very divisive. For me personally, I don't like this trope where, okay, it's literally not even getting wives, right? If it's getting wives, I actually like getting wives, right? But it's a trope of like, at any point of time, you go to anywhere. And I'm not just talking about MSQ, like literally anywhere in a side quest, optional quest, you walk on the street, bro, the reaction for like every single NPC is like, oh my god, is it an admin? Oh my god, the admin is here! The admin is here! It is his hail admin! Hail admin! Oh my god, he's finally here to save us, and it's literally the same for almost everyone. It could be you trying to prevent these two guys from quarreling with one another. They are like just quarreling, bro. It is not a world level adventure script. They are fucking quarreling, and I have to go down there and settle their personal disputes. There's this other guy that lost his slugs. His literal slugs, and I have to go around the map chasing his slugs. I am the fucking most important guy in the entire world, and like this narrative just doesn't really click with me. If I am really the him of this world, it breaks my immersion when I have to do these tasks and everyone treats me like a god, and they also don't treat me like a god at the same time. So that is my critique for lighting. Maybe if you guys had the feeling of like, oh my god, you are the most important guy in the world, I can understand. I just feel like it's a little bit silly when bro, there was this outpost quest, legit. It's like two guys, they were quarreling. And it's like, oh my god, the admin is here. Finally, we can resolve their quarrels. They can put their differences aside, and we can be one big heavy village ever. Bro, like, I'm like, why the fuck did you even call me here? Because I think that was like either a regional level 2 or a regional level 3. And like, after spending so much time running the world, collecting my pylons, and the fucking promotion quest is to settle two guys quarreling. Like, bro, I don't know, bro. So for me, it's just like a little bit silly. I would say for the actual like overall MSQ and the pacing, I think it's very nice. I do like the ENVAs, especially the ENVAs with the accent. Like for example, the Red Hood as well as Tang Tang is quite good. For the request between your Wuling as well as your Valley, I like Wuling way more, but also because I did not play Wuling back in CV3, so it was my first time playthrough. But I do feel that the whole, like, the actual getting wise, right, the dragon lady, right, going around, visiting the people, I feel maybe something bad might happen to her because, like, I think there's too much parasocialism for her to have nothing bad happening. Right, PTSD, Firefly, all that kind of stuff. So I do like the MC quite a bit. The villains are also very, very nice. Oh, the Sarah. This guy that appeared out of nowhere. Like, I'm interested to see who this person was, right? He literally just spawned in. He says he's a solo tourist who's like traveling the lands, right? And all of a sudden, bro is literally walking in front of us in the middle of a bamboo forest. So I really know, like, the suspense, right? He's weird. He's strange. And oh my god, the review. He is actually bad. So, like, these are not okay. It's just that the overall trope, like the main trope of the admin being the world savior, and I'm there like saving cats and like picking up like trash. It's like, bro, it doesn't work with me. Right? So that's gonna be there for a story. But one thing, this is very, very subjective. Very, very subjective. Okay, the remaining things, they are less subjective. Maybe a little bit lesser compared to like the gacha income, which is by far the biggest problem I have. But all these are things that I think that the game can improve on. So number one thing, the camera, right? So my personal worst issue with the camera is for both during combat and for the potential they can actually make for the camera outside of combat. So during the combat, right, I played using both controllers, KBM, and even on the fucking phone, right? So all three devices, I've tried them all. I feel like the camera, it literally cannot keep up with the enemies in this game. So the bosses, they move super fucking fast, and they don't just jump like a low jump, they jump all the way up to the fucking sky, and the camera cannot keep up, bro. Like, it literally will just like lose focus, and like you were like, oh, what's going on? And like, it's very, very difficult for you to actually get a feel of what's going on, especially if there are gonna be multiple minions spawning all at the same time. And when they do spawn minions, I don't know what is it, like, when I lock into like a minion, it will suddenly turn the fucking camera to another target when I'm literally attacking that target. So like, there's something really, really wrong going on with the auto lock camera. During combat, it is very bad. I think the best experience is probably KBM, because KBM you can just don't lock and you can just like move your mouse, so it makes it a lot more intuitive. I'm at a point where like, I don't even want to use auto lock in the controller anymore. I will just manually turn my screen with my joystick. That's how bad it is, right? So I hope they can fix the camera for the combat. There's another thing which is outside the combat, and that is, you know, the AIC, right? I feel like for a game that has so much focus on AIC, and I maybe understand why the combat cameras were not optimized, because like I mentioned, I feel like Arknights Endfield is a game that is not focused on combat, at least in the early game, right? They really, really want the majority of the mainstream media players to get used to the AIC, because that is their unique selling point, which I completely understand. But this is an issue where I feel like the cameras that is deployed in AIC could be like so much better. For example, why can I not zoom out to the entire map of the blueprint, but I can only see like a small portion of it? Like, even at the max zoom out, I can't see the whole thing. I don't know if there's a way to like actually like expand beyond that, but it would be a lot better if there's like, you already allow me to scroll, right? I can scroll, I can see the blueprints, so why not just let me see the whole thing as a whole? And it's like a very, very minor fix. So that's number one. Number two, I would say that you on the camera where you use to take selfies, right? You have the option to zoom all the way into your upper bust, to your ass, or like, it would be really nice if they include a drone feature, kind of. So like, they already have the technology to reverse the camera where like you are holding the phone and you're like looking at your units, right? So why not just do this by, instead of your character, you give it to like a drone, so that you can actually take your camera all the way up, literally to the sky, to look at your AIC. So a very good example is that our account, right? So like, basically my viewer had like an insane base. I had to TP to a random fucking hill in the middle of like a mountain just to look down into the perspective of how his AIC is gonna look like, which I think is that it really just doesn't make sense, because like, it is a game focused on building, right? You want to showcase the hard work that you have developed for so long, so it would be an absolute fucking game changer if the camera function allows for a drone to just fly up, zoom out, take nice pictures, zoom all the way in. Maybe you could do like drone shots, right? Traversing around the buildings, all that kind of shit. I think that would actually make like the AIC so much more enjoyable once you are done with the AIC. Because like, let's be real, like I said, if you finish the AIC, it's like a Lego building, right? It is like a Lego set. You don't really do anything anymore. It's just gonna be there collecting shit, alright, collecting dust, and it's just gonna, you know, produce your products. So if at least I'm gonna admire this building that I made, it will be very nice if there are like tools, like a drone camera, to just fly around and see things from like all the different POVs that I want, which makes it a lot better in terms of quality of life, right? So that is gonna be that for the camera angles. Now, next topic, the sanity allocation. The stamina, right? The stamina of this game, right? So I would say that it's actually not that bad, purely because, once again, I feel that Arknights Endfield in the current stage of the game, it is not focused on your unit development. It is not focused on combat. It is mostly getting people to understand AIC so that they can use AIC, improve regional development, and get a better income. So I kind of understand why the pace of developing characters is very, very slow, right? But holy shit, dude, it is really, really expensive. So to put a little bit of a context, right, you will need T credits. Not your stock builds, the actual T credits, which are things you're going to be able to get from a login event. You need your unit EXP, which is split into 2 different unit EXP before level 60 and after level 60. You will need your talent materials. You can get them from Overworld, but they are dropping very, very infrequently, or you can just farm them. You need your Ascension materials, which are gonna be both your overall materials, which you can get, but you also need to farm them, your rare materials for Ascension, which is literally time-gated. You could grow them in the lab, but it is still gonna be time-gated, so you can't raise like so many different units at the same time. And you also need your, what's the thing again? The same thing for your weapons, right? Your weapons also need weapon EXP, weapon materials, and on top of all these things, a single run is usually 60 to 80 stamina. So on a single day with 240, okay, I know you can store energy more than 300 and all that kind of stuff, but like on a single day's income, I didn't run the numbers, but it feels really, really slow to eventually try and get to all these units. It is not really that impactful now, but it doesn't mean that it is not a con. Because what happens when like the endgame content happens? And I haven't even started on the stamina dump in essence farming. In going for the right stats for the 3 different slots, and if it's gonna be wasted, it is minus 80 stamina. So when the endgame content comes, when you actually need to focus on the combat, hopefully by then, we will have a better stamina income. So for example, right, I know that your dailies actually give you 43 stamina. There potentially could be more ways, like for example, maybe events give out more stamina potions, right? So every single combat event, every single endgame, they give out, I don't know, 10 stamina. I'm not sure how it's like in Arknights Endfield, or rather in OG Arknights, because I've been told that there is this sanity PTSD, which I still have no idea what's it referring to. So maybe there's a system in Arknights that I'm not aware. But as of right now, it would be a little bit of a fear I have to just not being able to explore all these things when combat actually matters, right? So just a little bit more of a heads up, but not that big. At this point, I am about to go on a very, very big list of things that I think all could use improvements. I compiled this all by myself, as well as asking a couple of members of my community, like, what do you think could improve? So I don't really know how to classify them, so I'm just going to list them all as everything. So I'm just going to list them. If you agree or disagree, feel free. And then after this list, there's one last list, which is underutilized aspects that could use more, right? So first thing, the everything list. So if I couldn't classify them previously, I'm just gonna dump everything here, right? AIC power cables. Why the hell do we not have the free the relay system from Wuling, where we don't need to run around like a fucking dumbass? If I really have the technology with the power of, you know, CN, can I not just bring this technology back to Valley 4? I don't see any purpose in me running around the map, holding that stupid ass line. And honestly, it wouldn't have been the worst thing. But the moment you go into combat, you have to pray to fucking God you don't get out of the range, and you cannot put down a fucking turret to exit from the stage. You are just locked into combat in the middle of you traversing the fucking road when you need to get to the fucking mine station. So like, bro, like just fucking remove this. You already know why this is so bad. That's why you removed it, right? That's why you fucking removed it in Wuling. So why the fuck? Okay. Removing the power cables, right? Very, very good. Cable line, the zip line, right? I think zip lines are an integral part of overall exploration for Arknights Endfield. There are no mounts, there are no gliders, there are no flying. Zip lines are pretty much the end all be all, especially from point to point B between your depots as well as your rare material gatherings. But oh my god, can we please just make it faster, bro? Like, I know that it is a faster way, but it needs to be like even faster, right? I think they made it not as fast so that we can maybe see our surroundings and like have a feel of like riding like the zip line, but I've already seen it. So At some point, it's like, if I'm taking the trouble to connect my power cable all the way from like 10,000 years away from my AIC to this specific mining spot at the other side of the cliff, and I have to wait like 5 seconds, and I do this every single day because it's like a rare material spot, I think we can just make it faster. So, and then what I do, right? On a similar note in regards to speed, tower defense mode. So all of the tower defense mode that you're gonna be seeing from your outposts, right? Your little conditions that like basically the little tower defense. Can we please have a 2x or 3x speed option? There's literally nothing you can do in that fight, especially for a no operator scenario, right? There's one where you can use an operator, there's one you cannot use. At least for the no operator scenario, bro, just give 3x speed, bro. Like, do you just want me to stare there at my screen and I just like, oh my god, please don't go through, please don't go through, please don't. Like, I can do the exact same thing at 2x or 3x speed, and the battles get very, very long. I think like at some point you have to fight like what 80 over enemies, and it can be taking like almost like 10-ish minutes for a single fight, and God forbid you lose. Imagine you are like 70 out of 84, right? You are left with that final fucking hit, and this one bugger just zooms through and it blows up the tower. You just have to reset everything. So please make the tower defense mode way faster. Very, very good. Next thing, cross depot transfers. Right now, capped 1.5k per hour. Too fucking slow. Please make it at least 30 per minute, so that you can at least match, like if I want to transfer my Ferrum ores from Valley 4 to Wuling, at least let it match, right? If not even faster, right? If not even faster. For the same thing on the cross-regional transfers, the currency conversion for Wuling and Valley 4. Okay, I understand this is to not ruin the game economy, where if your Valley 4 production is too developed, compared, because Wuling right now is a lot slower, right? It is way, way, way slower compared to Valley 4. So I understand not being able to, just completely ignore Wuling and just focus on Valley 4, but at least allow conversion like, I don't know, like a 2:1 or 3:1 ratio. So I don't have to manually, like I'm literally talking about, I physically, manually transfer my Ferrum ores from Valley 4 to Wuling just to get a better efficiency from my Yangzhen solution. So I'm already doing that. So you might as well just have a better way, because I know that Valley 4 tokens are not going to be that useful anyways, especially by endgame where you just clear the entire shop. But Wuling needs a desperate bump, at least as of right now, because there's no Wuling maps, right? We already cleared the max, right? So if you can exchange currency at a certain percentage of ratio, I think it will be a huge fail. Also, on the same point, exchanging materials, they are going to be on different rarity, right? So you split out the EXP materials from like pre and post level 60. I don't even know for what, but if you're really gonna do it, at least let me convert, right? At least let me convert. Same thing for Ascension, same thing for your rare materials. So it will just be a little bit more of a quality of life instead of being like so rigid, right? It doesn't have to be this rigid. This one is a little bit more for like the skins. I think it will be nice if it's just for aesthetics. I can change the colors of my base. And the reason why I'm like, similar thing to the camera thing for AIC, I think the AIC as a base, it is a pretty big component. So adding features like changing the chromas, right? Adding stickers, right? Adding event stickers to like paste on my shit, right? Just skins to make it look more individualistic as well as more alive. It would make me feel more incentivized to have a pretty looking base, right? It will make me feel more incentivized to play this game more, because it is very, very obvious Arknights Endfield wants you to play AIC. So having even like cosmetics, it could bring in more players purely just of how good looking it is, and also more event option rewards, which is not going to be tied to your symbol like 800 gems, right? On top of that, you can give this kind of stuff to bring more players into the AI. So that's gonna be that. For this particular portion, it is gonna be for the friend system. The friend system we have right now, it is pretty good. There are a lot of interactions. You have your supply depots. You can go to your cabins. You can sell them. You can sell goods to them with the elastic goods services. You help them with their mood and everything, right? It is honestly quite well developed for this game, but it can be even better. More, right? More. So one of the things is, why in God's green earth can I not visit my friend's AIC? That is honestly the only reason why I even want to type this, because the friends is okay. But like, if I'm gonna be able to visit their ship, and the ship has like multiple rooms, and I render in all these different units, a game that is so focused on AIC, why can I not visit their actual most customized, most individualistic, the most amount of time they spend. Okay, not even like every single spot, just their core AIC, right? Maybe just their core AIC in Vanity 4 or like their core in Within the Future. But like, why can't I visit it? Because I think it will make some really, really interesting, and it's not like it's super difficult to render. You already render the guy's shit, you might as well just render the actual base itself, right? Okay, actually, I think it might take a little bit because, you know, people might... Okay, wait, actually, I didn't know. Oh, wait. MrPokke from the future, I just saw a vision. I saw a vision that if they were to implement this system, people are going to draw dicks and slurs and weird things and basically make this game like, yep. Okay, you know what? Forget it. We can't have good things, right? But I can literally see that. All right, so, okay, never mind. I will give it to you. But it would be nice if in an ideal society, everybody actually plays the game instead of like, you know, okay, you know what? I take it back. Okay, anyways, moving on to the next one. For the selection of combat materials after spending of stamina, this is just for myself. Maybe I was being a little bit silly, but why do I choose my rewards before the fight and after the fight? Okay, I am a little bit salty because I did not choose, thinking that I was going to choose at the end because, you know, muscle memory, but it automatically defaulted me to the choice that I didn't want. So I think it's a very small fix that is also very easy to add. Just change the rewards to at the end of the combat instead of before when you select, right? So just a small thing, very, very nice. Okay, this is going to be mainly for gears. This is going to be mainly for gears. I think this is way, way, way more niche, at least for most players, because I don't think anyone is thinking about Essence as well as Artifice, but it is super fucking expensive for your gear crafting. For your gear crafting, your Essence Artificing, your gear Artificing, as well as your Essence to like imprint, they cost an insane amount of money as well as stamina. And considering the lack of both, especially at this point of the game, maybe in the future we won't really feel it, but as of now, it is a very, very expensive. And if I'm not wrong, they actually added this as one of the options in their service. Like during their service, I actually did it. One of the questions was literally, the gear cost was too expensive. So I think y'all already know. So yep, make it happen, make it cheaper, and that's gonna be fantastic. Another thing, speaking about gear presets. It is 2026. I cannot understand for the life of me why gacha games hate gear presets so much. And this is such a waste because I think Arknights Endfield has one of the best gear system in modern gacha, right? Gone are the days of substat hunting. You can literally craft whatever fucking endgame gear you want. You just need to essentially get all their stats a little bit higher, a little bit lower. So it encourages a lot of different possible builds. You can mix and match 3. You literally have 3+1 in your system. It is a +1 for a reason, right? You want to increase your flexibility from these 4 pieces. So after all that, why not just have a gear preset? Super fucking simple. Also, hey, just if you're watching this video, go fuck. So that's gonna be that. And then on the same thing, more team presets, but maybe not that important for now, but in the future, maybe more team presets, right? Very, very nice. Okay, so that is pretty much every single thing in a QL that I can think of. If there are more things to improve, feel free to leave them out. Like I said, everything I say here, it is coming from a place of good faith, right? I don't hate on it. In fact, I fucking love this game, but a lot of these things are like my genuine, real frustrations as someone that legitimately spend like way too much fucking time, and I think they can be improved to make this game devs listen, right? So if anybody online, if these things have made it, you will know this video has done a devs listen. Last thing before I wrap this up, which is gonna be the underutilized aspects that could have more things. So first of all, tower defense. I think this is probably going to be stemming from Arknights' roots because Arknights is a tower defense game. So they added this system into the little mission from all of the outposts. But it feels really, really bare bones as of now. Maybe they'll have like gold quality towers. Maybe they'll have like more advanced version of the battles. But as of right now, it feels super, super bare bones. I would say you would probably want to draw a little bit of a line because if people hate tower defense and they add more of this, that will be rough. But if they already introduced tower defense to the game, it means that they want people to try this system. So a very easy fix, for example, you could add like a extreme mode. What is the end game in Arknights again? There was this end game content on it. Maybe you could add like an extreme mode for each outpost. And if you clear the extreme mode, you unlock like a skin. for like your turrets or for like your AIC. I think that will be a pretty good way just to take out the brains of like tower defense expert for more end content, because I think, like I said a lot of times, Endfield is a game that is not solely focused on combat, right? There's AIC, and since you brought tower defense, you might as well just introduce it to really just make this game have so many different things to do all at the same time. Okay, another thing. Your depots. Your stock depots around the world. Right now, the only thing we have is supply missions where we are adding as an Uber, right? We are adding as a delivery man, right? We bring points from stock A, or rather location A to location B, and usually we'll spice this up with like criteria. So you can't TP, you can't get hit, so they encourage you to use ziplines. I think the concept is pretty unique, it's pretty okay, but it would be nice if you already have this depot system with a built-in friend request, by the way, right? You can request stuff from your friends, you can give them jobs, so why not expand on this more and introduce like combat missions, right? Introduce like tower defense missions, right? Introduce these things that the game already has to make it even more than just simply becoming a delivery man for like the rest of the game, right? So more things to improve on in the future. And one last thing, I mentioned a little bit just now, the ziplines. I think the ziplines is probably like the most unique traversal option I've seen in the open world game. Aside from the speed, it will be very interesting if the ziplines can introduce transportation of goods without me being there. So instead of me manually going there, like I am the fucking god of this role, by the way, and I'm being a fucking delivery. Hell nah, bruh. I want the zipline to automate the depot on the daily mission so I can see goods literally traversing on the sky that I have set up all the way, alright? Or like cable cars, or like production facilities, or like you can build an entire system with the zip lines on the sky, bro. The sky is literally the limit for this. So I think that's super fucking interesting. So hopefully they can use that, right? Okay, with that, one last thing. I don't really know what to call this. It is not a pro. It is not a con. But I'm going to leave this at the end of this video. Arknights Endfield is definitely a game that has one of the biggest filter systems I've seen in mainstream gacha. Okay, we'll call this segment the filter, right? The filter. So whether this is a pro or con, it is completely up to you, all right? But I must say, the filter is not the AIC, right? It is not the AIC, it is not regional, but as a new player into this series, it is extremely divisive. You don't really have too much of a middle ground for like, from what I've seen so far. You don't really say, right? I'll just log in for like 10 minutes. Nah, it's not bad. It is really like the extreme end of people spamming like literally their entire lives. And then the other extreme is, oh my god, but this game doesn't respect my time. This game is too fucking hard. This game is too many things. It is like two very, very big group of people because of a incredibly thick and big filter, right? You either really fucking hate it or you really, really love it. So I guess this filter, right? Why this newcomer experience is so overwhelming is because there are a lot of things that you are bringing to the new audience of mainstream gacha, right? It is a very big change from the formula. It is almost like reinventing the wheel of like overall gacha games. So there are definitely gonna be super big differences as to whether or not you hate it or like it. I would say, for example, I think the best example, I said it at my review, like the last video. At the start of the game, you go into a cinematic cutscene. You walk through the snow just like any other MC, right? It is almost the same start for like almost every single open world gacha games. They introduce a little bit of a combat. They introduce the tower defense, right? You were shooting at the mobs. They introduce a boss fight. You wake up, you lose your memories. You wake up to Perliga, right? Staring at you. And then you are gonna progress through the open world like nobody's business, right? You are just gonna be collecting flowers, seeing the sights, a couple of monsters here and there, a boss fight, and then all of a sudden, yo, hello, welcome to AIC. All right, you are now gonna be part of our capitalism project. All right, here's everything you do to become our next empire, right? They throw you into the AIC in this MSQ, and then after AIC, you jump into a combat mission, or maybe you jump into a side quest, or maybe you simply just got distracted because, oh my god, that's a rare mineral mining site. What is a rare mineral? What the hell is that random pylon doing there with a random ass zipline? Where are the so like the game gives you a lot of these things right at the start, which can be a little bit confusing. And I would say that even for the combat system, you would need to adjust to this skill point mechanic, which does feel a lot more different compared to a lot of the, let's just say, the old pro gacha games, right? So some players might view this as like, okay, they want to keep things fresh, right? You want to introduce multiple things at the same time so that players don't feel bored, right? You don't want to slam instead 1 hour straight of AIC, 1 hour straight of story, or like 1 hour. It's probably gonna drive them insane. So you want to keep it fresh. On the other hand, people might just be like, oh my god, there are so many things happening at the same time. I literally cannot keep up. So these are probably the reasons why the new combat experience can be very, very divisive, not just related to the AIC. Now, the thing is, though, right? The thing is, after you pass the filter, right, the Arknights Endfield filter, if you were to pass it, you get used to the system. You get used to all of the things that the game has shown you for like the past couple of days, or maybe you're going to take weeks, if not months. Once you finish it, the game is a lot less overwhelming. In fact, you can probably just spend less than like 10 minutes on a daily basis if you want to. Because the stamina, it clears up in like, 3 battles, you're done. The AIC is basically already complete. If you want to skip your depot missions, you could just transfer jobs and you don't even do your friends transfers. Because frankly speaking, the bills for like the Valley 4, it is starting to get redundant, especially in the end game where you have like an infinite amount of money. So the dailies for this game, strictly in terms of like, let's just say spending energy, right? It is actually very, very fast. And there is not a lot of things left to do when you get there, right? When you eventually get there. So before you actually get to this point, so the end game, right? Before you get the end game, there are like a lot of things for the players to do, which I think it could be a drag for players that do not appreciate the pacing of how it's like, right? So the biggest thing is, right, like I mentioned, at a gacha income, and I think that it is a big fix. If we are going to be placing a priority on the AIC, players should rightly feel rewarded for learning the AIC, mainly through the gacha system. Because it wouldn't feel like you are trying to force yourself through the new player filter, right? Because at this point, you are like, okay, I have to learn the AIC to get an efficient yield, in order to get an efficient income. And once I finish all these checkpoints, it's almost like doing a job, right? It is legitimately a little bit like I'm doing all these things, not getting paid, by the way, for free at night. And finally, now that I completed the AIC, it is part of the game's objective. But you don't really feel that sense of reward because you are at the end of the day playing a gacha game, right? You're not getting paid to do this. It is just for your enjoyment. And I find it more difficult for a new player to get that sense of enjoyment if it is the first time trying, right? I could tell that if I was not, like, let's just say, like, if I'm not a content creator, or like if I'm not that invested into how this game has to offer, I would legitimately hate the AIC progression, bro. It is just that the amount of time I'm spending, and I'm talking to my community and my friends, it made it way more enjoyable for me as a player. But if you're just some random jobber, and you have no one to talk to, and you just came back home from a day's of work, and oh my god, bro, I need to spend 30 minutes every single day after I end work to learn how to make pipelines from the water to make Cyrite. And then tomorrow, I'm going to start on my lecture, how to make gold gears. Oh wait, I can't because my Cyrite is clogged. So it's like, it legitimately feels quite painful for players that do not have this amount of dedication, especially if you don't even have like a baseline incentive, for example, pools. Because a lot of times, gacha games, they do tie pools, currency, to things that they want you to try. Endgame content, MOC, Pure Fusion, A-Box Channel, you name it, there's always going to be able to have, right? So at this point, I would say, even with blueprints, even with the core concept of like all these new things that Endfield has to offer, I think it would be nice where before the players, the new players, understand why they will want to do AIC for free because they want to enjoy it, easing them through the process by making it a smoother slope, it will reduce the number of people filtered, which could mean the community might be less concentrated. Which is why I didn't leave this as like a pro or con. Do you like a more filtered community where people that pass through everything are people that said, oh man, back in my days, you know, we didn't even have to use blueprints, man. We had to manually build every single building step by step, hand by hand, right? Or would you rather just make the filter such that any random person that wants to pick up Arknight can try ahead and pick up Arknights for themselves, which may or may not introduce people that will, you know, play this game for the sake of like, like hating, man, fuck Arknights, bro, this game sucks ass, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but this game just sucks ass. So like, it is not really a pro, it is not really a con, and at the end of this video, I'll just leave this one last thing. Mr. Poet. The journey of building an empire is not from the views you see at the top, but rather the flowers you plant on your road. With that, I've come to the end of my Arknights Endfield experience 100 plus hours later. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. It is very, very intensive because, I really just gave this game like all my attention, right? Future videos, PokeCorp, I'll be making more guide content. HSR 4.0 is coming. Hope you guys enjoyed this quick 10-minute review. Word of the day is gonna be, join this, use code POKE for 10 gamer subs. All the best for Catapults. And I'll see you guys next time.